Hey guys, welcome back to another Spy Family Sunday. Today I'm here to talk about chapter 104 of the Spy Family manga. So this chapter was definitely, in my opinion, it felt a little shorter than most chapters, but it was light, it was funny. Again, if you guys are new to the channel, please consider liking, subscribing to the channel, dropping me a comment because I do like discussing these after they're posted. So the chapter starts off with Damien, Ewan, and Emil, and they're studying in the library. They just got back from the break. Ewan and Emil are complaining. They're like, why are we studying? Like, why are we in the library? Like, we just got back from break. We should go out and have an adventure. Damien is sort of annoyed by this, but he isn't moved by it. And so they're studying, and I'm assuming a librarian comes up to them with a stack of books that he wants to, and he's saying, oh, you're a pretty diligent reader. And Damien basically goes on to say, well, I'm gonna do what I have to do to get Stella's, basically. Emil is like, looking at all these books are making me drowsy, and, Damien's like, how can you say that? There's lots of things we can learn from these books. Like, look at these ancient cultures, and, and all this stuff that, that's part of this continent. And Ewan and Emil are basically saying, this is ancient history. Let's go out and have our own adventures. The librarian chimes in and says that, after the war, there's a treasure hunting boom. And all of the kids are like, what? And so basically the reason for that is after the war, there were several advances in technology, and soldiers and pilots were exploring an unknown patch of land, ancient ruins, looking for treasure and stuff like that. And so that brought about this treasure hunting boom. And they're reading a section of one of the books where it says that an Eden student went on one of these adventures and discovered something, and he snagged a Stella. And so now Damien, Ewan, and Emil are like, okay, we have to go out to this place, we have to go on an adventure. So it pans to this new shot of all of them running through the forest and, just ready to find like this ancient treasure. It's cool because each of the family butlers comes along. So we get Jeeves, we get the Elman butler, and we get the Edberg butler. I don't know their names, I just know Jeeves. And it's really cool to see him again. We just got like that one sort of panel when he was talking to Damien after his mother had cooked for him. So I think it's cool that we're seeing more of Jeeves. I definitely appreciate that. And so Jeeves is saying, well, this is not how I planned on spending my vacation. And the other butlers are basically in agreement. And so the boys are just, running around, and they're like, where are we running to? Is there a path? And Damien's like, no idea, but just shut up and follow me. And so their only reference is, one of these old books that they have from the library. And so they're checking out the map. Jeeves is thinking to himself, we might have, you might have wanted to map this out before we came out here. And so their only point of reference is following the books that they got from the library. And one of the butlers is like, hey, don't get the library books dirty. We basically just get a bunch of panels of, the boys, rock climbing, going across bridges, walking through giant trees, drinking creek water. As the adventure goes on, Jeeves is like, look out, Master Damien, and he throws an acorn that's at a snake that's near the boys. And, Damien starts freaking out, and he's like, there's snakes, there's bugs everywhere, I don't want to do this anymore, I just want to go home. Jeeves is saying, worry not, I will lay down my life for you, so you don't need to worry. And Emil is saying, if you hate all of this so much, like, why don't we just go home? And Damien's like, no, we can't go back. We haven't found anything yet. It would sully the Desmond name if I were to go back now. I'm not returning without Stella. And so we all know Damien's motivation behind this. He wants that affirmation from his father. He wants his father to be proud, and Jeeves is sort of giving him this thoughtful look as he's saying this. And then he's like, perhaps we should prepare a meal then. And so it's funny, we get this panel of like all of the butlers just basically cooking this, 5-course meal in the middle of the jungle. They have like chef hats and everything, and like cooking supplies, and it's just like, sure, because this is realistic. And so they cook the boys' food. Emil is like, now that we've eaten, what's next? And so Damien's a little frustrated because, he's following the guide of this book, and they haven't found anything, and they're not really sure like how to proceed. And Ewan is like, well, we can't do this all day. We only have about 3 hours before the sun's gonna go down. And so Damien's sort of having like an internal like panic. He's like, what are we gonna do? Like, I don't want to leave without Estella. Like, we have to get this Stella. And then we get this funny panel where Damien's basically going into this like Zen mode. He's like, I'm the king of antiquity. He's like, just follow my lead. My senses are leading me this way. And so, Ewan and Emil are like, of course, we'll follow you, my king, we'll follow you. And so they continue on the path while, Damien is leading them. And then suddenly a spider lands on Damien's shoulder and he flips out, like just incohesive. You can't even understand like what language he's speaking. I don't blame him. Like, it's a pretty big spider. Like, it looks tarantula size, so I wouldn't want a tarantula on my shoulder either. And Jeeves is like, don't run away, sir, you could hurt yourself. And he like swats the spider off of his shoulder with like a flick, which is hilarious. He's like, I don't want to do this. I hate this. I want to go home. Like, I don't care about any of this anymore. I don't even want a Stella. And Jeeves is ironically trying to, I guess, cheer him up. He's like, Master Damien, those who stand above must never allow their weakness to be witnessed by those below. And Ewan and Emil are like, those below, and they're giving him like mad side eye. And so Damien's still running. He ends up tripping over like a rock or a stump or something, and they discover this giant plant. It's really hard to describe. It's like, it looks like something you would see out of Jurassic Park. Actually, you know what? It looks like a Pokemon. You guys know what like Oddish looks like in Gloom and then Vileplume, and anybody that's played Pokemon understands that reference. That's basically what this thing looks like. And so they're like, what the heck is that giant flower? And so they think that they've discovered something rare, and Jeeves is like, this is one of the world's biggest flowers, and it's called a Jeskuran. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but if anybody knows how to pronounce that, that's what it's called. I mean, it's not anything that hasn't been discovered, but it is a rare sighting. And so Ewan takes pictures of it, and they're like, oh, this will definitely get you a Stella star, but since it's not a new discovery, it's just cool to see. And Damien's like, well, like, this is not worth a Stella. And so they all agree to go home because the sun's going down, and it's just crazy. Like, it's an entire operation. You see cars coming in, helicopters coming in to pick up the boys. Damien's sitting in the helicopter. He's like, oh, I'm exhausted. The pilot is asking him, Master Damien, what would you like for dinner? He's like, it doesn't matter. We can just stop at a restaurant when we get back to Berlin. Once again, Jeeves is sort of looking at him in a contemplative way, looks at him almost like he can read his mind. Jeeves is like, and it's really weird how he says it. He's like, there's currently no members of your family that are staying at the mansion. Is this what you're worried about? And Damien's like, what are you talking about? I never said I didn't want to go home. Jeeves is like, it seems as though you're always finding reasons not to. And Damien's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're always worrying about weird things. I would appreciate it if you stop that. And Damien goes on to say, it's not like I'm the one who's avoiding them. And Jeeves is like, are you sure about that? And then he goes on to say, in that case, perhaps I'll call your mom and request that she cooks for you. And Damien's like, no, don't do any of that. Jeeves goes on to say, he's like, I think you should show that picture of that plant to your brother. I'm pretty sure like his eyes would bulge out of his sockets. And then Damien says something like, I don't think anything can make my brother's eyes any bigger than they already are. Damien goes on to say, wait a minute, have you been blabbering all of this weird stuff to my mother again? And Jeeves is like, weird stuff. And Damien's like, like talking to her about that forger girl. And Jeeves is like, are you referring to that intimate dance you shared with her at the end of the term party? Or about how long you agonized over what you would wear to the occasion? And then, of course, Damien sort of like freaks out and he's like, tell me you didn't tell her all of that. And then Jeeves is like, I can't really recall. And the pilot of the helicopter is like, Jeeves, please, like, stop teasing Damien before we end up crashing. And so that's how the chapter ends. And I find it very interesting. It was a great chapter. Definitely more of a transitional chapter, just like last chapter, sort of reintroducing us to this current timeline and what's going on with the students and the forgers. But I will say that with this chapter, I do appreciate that they're giving more of a personality to Jeeves and really sort of tying his relationship to Damien, bringing it out. Like, he's not just some stiff butler. Like, he genuinely cares for Damien. He teases him. He jokes about things. From what this chapter suggests, he's trying to get Damien to sort of interact more with his family. He's like, oh, maybe I should call your mom and have her cook for you. You know, you should show your brother this picture that you took today, and like encouraging him to be present with his family. And I find it interesting that Jeeves is the one that suggested that Damien is avoiding his family, when it feels like, at least from what we've read and seen, that his family is the one that sort of like never has time for him. So I do find that fascinating. I don't know. I'm not sure where that perspective is coming from. I mean, obviously we know that Jeeves lives with Damien, but to suggest that Damien is the one avoiding his family is very odd. His father barely has time to even interact with him. He has to schedule a time to see his dad. His brother acts like he doesn't want anything to do with him. We know that Melinda's a little odd. She at least seems to have some kind of split personality. So it's just like, and even Jeeves said it. He's like, nobody in your family is at the mansion. So it's like, I was a little confused by that conversation. So it does add a little more to the Desmond dynamic, family dynamic. So I'm hoping this is leading into an arc that focuses on this family, because even though this was a lighthearted chapter, a lot was said just in that conversation. So I want to explore more of that. I want to see more of the Desmond family. I want to see them interacting. I want to understand why these people are so separated and why Jeeves is trying to get Damien to interact with his family more. It's a very odd shift considering everything that we do know about this family. So it was a good chapter. I can't wait for the next one. Hopefully, again, this is leading into some type of arc following the Desmond family. That would be fantastic. I feel like the audience is really itching for that. At least I am. So yeah, it was a great chapter. Thank you guys for listening, and until next time, remember to be awesome and stay true.